off the interface effects for your sound thing?
Hello and welcome to another episode of My Dinner with Gabe, with Zav LePlay and Gabe Van Handel. It is another night, another Friday night, another mysterious Friday night. Zav and Gabe together talking about movies, movie news, and how movies affect us and the world we live in. Zav, how are you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm fine.
That's good. I'm doing pretty good myself. Box office and movie news for your last week. Box office for August 24th, 26th. And we're going to try something different tonight. I'm going to have Zav LePlay read the actual box office numbers. Bam.
Oh, I start now?
Go for it.
Wow. Well, The Expendables weekend gross 13. These are long strings of numbers. Should I read them all?
Just
$13.5 million. Well, Bourne Legacy. Have you talked to anyone who's seen that? You said it wasn't.
It's disappointing. Yeah. I've read reviews and I've talked to people who saw the movie and they pretty much matched up. What
about Expendables 2?
I saw the Expendables 2 the day it opened because
you did?
I was
at the theater.
Oh yeah, I was
because that one's doing quite a bit better.
It's not doing as good as they were anticipating, and it's not doing as well as even its predecessor, which is really disappointing for Lionsgate.
Oh wait, Bourne Legacy actually. Wait, are they? Oh, it's been out 3 weeks longer, and it's made 1/3 more. It's 85 million versus 52 million. I'm comparing Expendables 2 and Bourne Legacy.
Okay.
Paranormal made 8 million
in its second week, correct?
Second week, yeah.
Okay.
The campaign. What's that about again? That's
the campaign is the Zach Galifianakis and the Will Ferrell comedy that we talked about last week. That's in its. How many weeks is it?
Oh, that's in its third week, and it's made $64 million.
For a campaign comedy, it's the highest grossing to date. It had the highest grossing opening for a political comedy, and it's the highest grossing film about a political campaign.
Oh, but of course it's coming out now when there's a campaign going on, so that's probably timed in favor of it. The Dark Knight Rises. I forgot all about that film. That shows like the short term. Remember when that was just all we heard about? It's in its 6th week, so that was 6 weeks ago. Wow, it's made 422
It's the 18th highest grossing film of all time right now.
Millions and millions of dollars. The Odd Life of Timothy Green. 7 million this weekend and 27 million in 2 weeks. It's a major disappointment?
Well, because it's a small film and it opened modestly, but the fact that they've been advertising this film for over a year and they basically we're hoping that this would be a sleeper hit among audiences and among family. Not among audiences, among couples and women and among families. And they were hoping that, I think they just thought this film was a lot more intelligent than it really is. And I think they were hoping that this film was going to have a really high cinema score, or that people were going to spread this word of mouth, and it just turned out, from what I've been reading, to not be a very original film. So that didn't really work out in their favor, but it could have done a lot worse. It opened decently, but it didn't open great.
So what is 2016 Obama's America?
That was the movie I was talking about with you this afternoon, the conservative documentary.
Oh, right. Wow.
That's the movie where they were trying to slander.
Jeez, that's it's doing so well.
Well, it's
6.5 million.
It's been out for a while, and it's the 6th highest grossing political documentary of all time, behind Michael Moore's four major political releases, and behind Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth from 2005. It's the highest grossing conservative politics documentary of all time, ahead of Ben Stein's Expelled, which only grossed $7 million at the theater when that came out. So yeah, that's a movie that is moving right along. I am curious to see it. I just want to see what the hell they have to say.
Yeah, interesting. So we have these political campaigny movies.
Absolutely.
Premium Rush,
which opened 8th, which is a little bit of a disappointment because here's a movie that I was slandering from the second that I saw its trailer. It's been shelved for a number of years, and I figured it was going to be a terrible film because the first trailer that I saw for this film was about a year and a half ago, maybe almost 2 years ago, and it actually looked pretty fun. It actually looked similar to what I've been reading about the film, is that it's supposed to be just really fun, really funny, really well directed, and really engaging, and just super.
Wait, what's it about?
It's about a bike messenger who receives a message.
Right, yeah, we keep talking about this one.
And then he has to, and then last week I talked about on the show about how this movie got surprisingly really good reviews. That it's supposed to be just really entertaining and fresh and just and kind of intelligently well directed and well made.
Yeah.
So I was just a little bit disappointed that it ended up doing the business that I thought that I've been thinking for months it was going to do. And it opened terribly, number 8th.
Okay, after that is Hope Springs, and it's at almost 6 million, 5,700,000. Hope Springs, is that the one that's
Meryl Streep.
The Meryl Streep. Okay, and then should I keep going? How many? How far down
just
this list
to the 10th?
do we go? Okay, the 10th one is Hit and Run. At $4.5 million,
which is a major disappointment for that release as well. Dax Shepard directed film, which has had a lot of publicity. He and Bradley Cooper and his wife Kristen Bell have all been on a lot of talk shows. Have done a huge circuit for this film, and they're real. And what I've been hearing is that there's a lot of elements in this film to its credit, but there's a lot that is to its detriment. And unfortunately, the detriment ends up sort of making it more of a hit and miss than a hit and run.
Now, you say these are major disappointments. Are these people disappointed? Or, I mean, at this point, they've been doing this for decades and hundreds of years. Maybe almost 100 years. But definitely, it's a business.
A film opening 10th is bad. Because a film opening to number 10,
but only one movie can open as number 1.
Most movies that open, if it doesn't open number 1, number 2, or number 3, or at minimum number 4, it's a disappointment because the opening weekend is your strongest weekend.
But isn't it relative to the amount of money that it was
cost to make? Sometimes, but a lot of times if you take into account advertising, which isn't brought in.
That you consider marketing, advertising, of course.
It's not incorporated in the budget amount.
Oh, is there a budget somewhere on here?
Yes, it's right there on the second to last column.
So okay, so when it says 100, that means 100 million.
Yeah.
So Expendables was 100 million.
Correct.
Born Legacy was 125 million. The Dark Knight Rises was 250 million. So it cost 2.5 times the price of Expendables to make Dark Knight. They don't have prices for a bunch of these, but
a bunch of them, yeah.
Okay, so Hit and Run, is that the one you said is a disappointment? That was a $2 million movie.
So it's already made more than it cost, but they were hoping for at least a $10 million opening, is what I'm saying. So even though it's like, yeah, I mean, it's money back, the fact that they've been putting these people on talk shows.
And they've been marketing it.
They've been marketing the hell out of it, and to distribute it.
And what is Hit and Run about?
Hit and Run is a romantic comedy that's also kind of an action comedy. It's also a gross-out buddy road trip film. And Dax Shepard plays a man who's on the run, and Kristen Bell, who's his wife in real life, or I'm sorry, his love interest in real life. Apparently, there's supposed to be a lot of good chemistry between them. They're both talented comedic actors. I don't personally find Dax Shepard funny, but he definitely has a presence, and he's definitely an acceptable actor. Bradley Cooper's in it. There's a lot of engaging performances, and there's a lot of really funny, really specific moments in the film, but it just ends up falling flat on its face and doesn't come into what it could have been. There's a lot of could-haves I've been reading about it. So this movie only opening 10th, which is not a very good opening. And I do have further info about about the entire box office that happened this weekend. And The Apparition also opened, and that opened 12th, which seems to be a movie that Warner Brothers just wanted to get rid of at this point, seeing as that it's one of the 4 worst reviewed films that's opened to a major release this year so far. I think they just realized what a dog this was and just wanted to get rid of it. Besides, I think it's the worst reviewed film besides 1,000 Words. So this is the lowest cumulative grossing weekend so far this year of all the releases.
Oh, really?
Which
is that common that the last weekends in August are slow?
Not this slow. I mean, it's usually out of nowhere.
But I mean, this time of year, I imagine a lot of people are camping and doing outdoorsy stuff with their families.
But sometimes it's a strong weekend. Sometimes
it can be a strong.
It can be a strong weekend. It's not like the middle of March, which is considered a very slow time. The end of April is considered very slow. Middle of March, end of April. February is a slow month, but that's a hit and miss. Some weeks in February out of nowhere are extremely high grossing for sleeper hits, and then all of a sudden these films just sort of teeter off. From here until the end of the year is pretty strong box office season, actually, especially after October.
Can you guess what the lowest grossing on this list is?
The one that's number 10.
No. 110th.
Grossing so far?
110th on the list.
Oh, I have no interest in what's even lower than that. I mean, because there's so much. There's just so many.
It just goes on and on.
It just goes on and on. And
like
yeah.
The whole movie that someone made last week.
Yeah, it's just literally there's like so much data on there. It's ridiculous.
But I do see some here that are pretty big investment films, and they don't have a whole lot of that you would consider disappointments, where there's less money come in than the amount invested.
Well, and that's what I find interesting about the box office news is that there's a lot of money lost in movies that are made.
But it's got to be. I mean, it's obviously it's an industry that works. People have been doing it, and they make money. They make livings off of it.
The 1 out of 4.
And also, this is the other thing: is with the Depression era, or what we're in a quote-unquote recession. Cinema, well, in the Great Depression, cinema did really well, but now we live in a world.
It's the most successful period for it in history.
Yeah, and now I'm imagining, people don't just go to movie theaters; they mostly watch things on Netflix and on. They get things, they buy them on DVD, they get them on their, on their phones and digital downloading and all that other craziness. So there's probably all kinds of ways, not just theatrical. The theatrical might not be quite. In fact, people might be going to theaters a lot less because they don't have much money and they're just watching stuff on Netflix. I don't know.
I mean, it goes back and forth. It's considered by some experts to be that it's still one of the cheapest forms of entertainment. That's why people are still going. That's why a movie like The Avengers is breaking records, and The Dark Knight Rises is still pulling in record numbers because people do go to movies.
The Avengers, just to give you a number on that, it's 617 million, almost 618 million.
The 4th highest grossing film of all time. So The Expendables 2 is not.
But what does that mean? Because when we talk about, are we talking about inflation-adjusted dollars? Because I mean, obviously the dollar doesn't buy you nearly as much now.
Just straight amount.
Okay. Well then, I mean, if you have to inflation adjust to say it's historically the most, you know what I'm saying?
It's just straight number. Yeah. Just
because I mean the dollar in the 1930s would have bought you like dinner.
Well, yeah. I mean because if you look at how much like King Kong made. Adjusted for inflation, that's one of the most successful films of all time, based on its original box office run from 33 to 35.
Okay, go ahead, Gabe. Gabe's rolling his eyes.
Well, no, I just wanted to get this part done.
I'm frustrating, Gabe.
Not really. I just wanted to get this part done. So The Expendables 2 is doing $15 million less in its run at this point than The Expendables was doing, and this is really surprising considering that The Expendables was this huge hit. I mean, they knew this was going to make money. They knew that action fans, non-action fans, people that only knew of one actor or just one person in the cast or crew, just people wanting to see a good, entertaining action film or just a good piece of escapism, were going to see that movie. So they invested $80 million in it. And besides The Hunger Games, it was the most expensive film that Lionsgate ever produced. So The Expendables 2 is now the second most expensive film that Lionsgate has ever put their money into. And they were thinking that, well, that movie was such a hit that this is going to be just huge. So the fact that this is doing less business than The Expendables is just, I mean, I find it baffling as well. So it's just kind of a disappointment for them. It's doing really well overseas, though, so it doesn't really matter. But this is their main market. This is the homeland. This is where the movie was supposed to be killing it. Mm-hmm. So they're just a little shocked and a little bit disappointed. Sylvester Stallone is notably a little bit disappointed about it. He just is like, well, we were hoping to make an Expendables 3, but it's looking like we're having to put that on hold for now because it looks like its cumulative gross isn't going to be as big as even the first one, which is surprising.
Did you like the first one?
I loved it. It's one of my all-time. It's one of my top 5 action films of all time.
Wow.
I mean, it's trash.
I have to say, I saw the cover and I was prejudiced, and I thought, this can't be good. But that's not a good way to decide.
And you have to be predisposed to love action films from the 1980s for what they are. Mm-hmm. Like personally, like I love films written by Shane Black, who's actually a pretty great writer when it comes down to, I mean, action or any genre, like Die Hard, Predator, RoboCop. I mean, he didn't write all those, but he wrote Die Hard, and he wrote Last Action Hero, which are just very original, very strange movies. Predator is my all-time favorite action film, and The Expendables is right beside it. In terms of just combining muscle-strewn violence and just great one-liners, but also incorporating a little bit of art and actually making kind of a potent, powerful picture with moments of just actual poignancy is something I really love. I love when an action
Does
film
Mel
can be both.
Gibson have a catchphrase?
No.
The way Clint Eastwood and Arnold Schwarzenegger do? Who else is
he's really
hyperactive? Like that?
Arnold.
Besides for Arnold Schwarzenegger and Clint Eastwood,
Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone.
Who else has a catchphrase?
Like a catchphrase that they're really well. No,
like,
John
Go
Wayne.
ahead, make my day.
John Wayne.
What was John Wayne's?
Hey there, Pilgrim. Or like that's what he's most well known for. But every film he usually had.
He had something. Yeah.
He always had something. Yeah.
Yeah. If you know what that is, call us at 414-935-2951. Tell us what John Wayne's catchphrase was.
Sylvester, well, I'd say like "Howdy there, Pilgrim," or "You're mighty pretty when you're angry," or "Easy there, sister." And
those don't. That's not the same. That's not the same as "Go ahead, make my day."
Go ahead, make my day, or "Do you punk?"
Oh, what's "Do you punk"?
That's from Dirty Harry. It's the scene in the beginning. Now you got to ask yourself, do you feel lucky? Well, do you punk? In the opening scene when he stops the bank robbery, it's the scene with the 44 Magnum that pretty much like
I'll be back. That was the Schwarzenegger. I'll be back.
In both films.
Yeah.
And then
of course Mr. T, but he's not really. He doesn't really count. He's low on the action hero scale.
And Jean-Claude just saying random things in French. And Sylvester Stallone's my personal phrase of I have 2 personal favorite quotes of his, being one, and the other one being he doesn't know these 3 seashells from Demolition Man. So and then I've just got a little bit of more data here on a couple of films. I've got The Bourne Legacy. This is a disappointment for Universal because they were hoping that this was going to be another blockbuster entry in the blockbuster action series, but unfortunately it's not even going to reach the previous series' low amount of The Bourne Identity, which was the first film, which wasn't a hit, but was a modest success, a very low but modest success. And that film grossed $121 million. This movie isn't likely to even reach that, and most likely that's based on the bad word of mouth, or the lack of interest, and the fact that Matt Damon isn't in this, most likely. Paranorman is doing pretty good for a stop motion film. It's actually, to be honest, it's actually doing really good. Most stop animation films just bombed. They sank. Pirates, the Band of Misfits, bombed. Coraline being the only film that, in recent memory, that's done really well. 9, also made by Focus Features, as was this. both did very well. So it looks like Focus might be the only studio that's pulling off some miracles of stop motion. The Wallace and Gromit Curse of the Were-Rabbit movie did some decent business, but there hasn't been a sequel since. It was profitable if you include worldwide gross.
There was a Wallace and Gromit that just got released. I just ordered it. I was surprised too. It's a recent release of Wallace and Gromit. I'll look it up while you keep going.
And then the campaign is on the low end for a feral comedy. At this point, it's doing decent business, but it's more likely to end up actually being a kind of a disappointment, and that's fine. 2016 Obama's America is already the 6th highest grossing political doc ever, which we had talked about. Highest grossing conservative documentary ever. All 3 of the new releases just bombed. The Apparition, which opened 12th, is just looking like Warner Brothers wanted it to go away. Only 810 locations. No marketing was done for this film. Mission accomplished, I guess. Sparkle fell hard. I mean, this movie fell really hard, which is strange considering that the audience score from it was huge. It's a film that shouldn't really merit a fall this big because the audience is an audience that typically isn't skewed by reviews or isn't skewed by even bad word of mouth or something. It's just so it's just a little surprising that this film, especially with Whitney Houston, they were kind of anticipating maybe a sleeper hit with this. It just didn't happen. Super Run is just a super hit and miss. It's just a very disappointing week at the box office for all the studios. Sorry guys, sometimes it just happens that way. That's your box office news. Opening. You got movies that are opening in the theater, believe it or not. Believe it or not. You got the Oogie Loves in The Big Balloon Adventure. That's a toddler series. It's a children's show that is being put in the theater. So it's an interactive film for toddlers, and so they encourage singing along and dancing and jumping in the aisles and just having a good old time with your parents and being silly. So it's a very interactive movie for small children, not a typical narrative, not a typical kids film even. So you got to look at this one with a grain of salt and understand what. But with that in mind, it's gotten some pretty good reviews from a couple of critics. Some critics have just said this is a waste of time, but I just think maybe they didn't have kids, or maybe they just can't appreciate it. So it's it's genuinely strange is what I've been hearing. It's just a very surreal movie. A couple critics have even been saying it's a must for stoners. It's just really bizarre, and it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of dancing, a lot of singing, a lot of playing along in the theater. It's fun for kids. The songs are catchy too, from what I've been hearing. There's a critic that even said that he's possibly considering buying the soundtrack because he can't get a couple of the tracks out of his head. And there's a lot of positivity. There's good problem solving. There's no villains. What's to hate? I'm not going to see it most likely because I've heard that what they're saying is that the fun of it is going to see in the theater. But I might rent this for my daughter, who's now a year and a half old. She might like this in a year or so. So why not? What's to hate about this? The Possession, which is just another sophomore PG-13 possession movie about someone being possessed, a teenager being possessed, and someone has to come along and extract the possession, and terror ensues, jumps ensue, scary music ensues, a bunch of weird crap happening ensues. This movie's been made so many times in the past couple of years. So what I've been reading, a few scary moments, over-directed, rehashed, second-rate horror, possession cliches. However, there's a Jewish perspective in this movie, and Matisyahu plays the rabbi who has to come and extract the demon.
Who is Matisyahu?
Matisyahu. He's a popular MC/singer who had a couple of hits on the radio, I'd say, 7 years ago, and he's a rabbi.
Oh, he's a real rabbi.
He's a real rabbi.
Like our rabbi, the rabbi who does a show here.
He actually dresses in full garb, and he has a synagogue, and he does very bro-y music, very bro-y reggae themed hip hop, and he's in the film sort of tongue in cheek, over the top. Just can't save its overtread territory. The last release of this week for the 31st is Lawless, which should have been a lot better than it is from what I've been reading. Shia LaBeouf, Tom Hardy are great, but there isn't much else to it. It's gruesome, it's violent, it's period focus. It takes place during the Depression, and it's a bootlegger film about a couple of good old boys in the country just trying to make a living and get away from the corrupt law and the corrupt city slickers. So it's. But it lives by this one-dimensional idea that the country folk good, city slickers bad, corrupt government agent bad. It just wears real thin, real fast, lacks character development, a lot of atrocious things that happen, but none of it really shocks or none of it pulls your heartstrings because you don't really care about the characters. Like, who knows? Maybe this movie's awesome, but I pretty much read that across the board, that it's like a movie that has a lot of good almost performances and has great actors. Good actors in it. It just never comes together because of a lack of direction and a lack of focus. So that's your box office and movie news. Zav and I interacting. This was fun.
Thank you.
This is awesome. Thank you,
much
Zav.
better, I think. I found the Wallace and Gromit film that I ordered. Yeah. It's called World of Invention. It doesn't show up in there like
I think it's
IMDb.
I think it's a compilation of older skits.
Well, here it says it's. I might be wrong, but it says Wallace and Gromit's World of Invention sees world-renowned inventor Wallace and his faithful sidekick turn their hand, presenting very first time hosting a 6-part series from the basement of their place. They take off a 6-part series. Yep. They take an enthusiastic look at real-life cracking contraptions. I don't know.
So it's not a feature film. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just like
it's a compilation of episodes.
But I don't think it's DVD. Past stuff. Is stuff from the past. It's here. It says DVD release date March 13th.
I guess what I meant before was that a theatrical release because
I see. So it's stuff that they made, but it's not wasn't released in theaters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Were Rabbit.
Fair enough.
Were Rabbit was a feature film that was released in the theaters, I love that movie. It was one of my favorites of the year that it came out. I actually very enthusiastically recommended it.
Oh, their stuff is really good.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It definitely goes above and beyond the child fare that I think a lot of people sometimes associated with. It just isn't even in that realm. So we got some movie reviews.
Yeah.
So Zav, why don't you go first?
Oh, well, I'm playing the music to it, and it is the music of Godard's recent release called Socialisme. It might be Film Socialisme. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Something Frenchy.
Yeah.
Something Frenchy sounding. Okay.
And I enjoyed this film a lot because I'm a big Godard fan, and I've followed his work ever since I was. Before I even saw his films, I read books about his work, and somehow I really relate to his approach and his style and it's kind of like where he's at as a filmmaker, because he's always working in experimentation with cinema, kind of looking at cinema from a kind of macro perspective. At the same time, he is very politically minded. His work is always about sort of like our society and power and how society is affected by things like war, and so I'm very and affected by things like oil companies and all this kind of thing. So I'm a big fan of his approach. He tends to mix narrative style. Sometimes his films look like Hollywood cinema or French Hollywood cinema. I don't know where the French Hollywood is. They probably don't really have. Well, they must have some center of cinema, but his filmmaking tends to be very beautiful at times. And what's interesting now to see in this film Socialisme, is. Oh wait, Gabe is writing a note that says, "Let's be done with reviews by 55 minutes." Okay. So anyway, it was a very good review. Okay, so what I was saying before I got interrupted by that note was that his style now incorporates things like handheld video, But then also some of the video looks like he just shot it himself, or maybe he had someone help him shoot some stuff, but it's shot in a way that it almost looks like they just took a home camera and shot it. But then some of it looks like, you know, regular cinema fare, and then some of it is in between, and then in addition to that he mixes found footage, footage from war, footage from other filmmakers, other cinema. The thing about Godard, and I think this is true with anyone as you get older, is that some of his stuff just seems stuck in the same place where it was when he was, you know, at his most radical point. He doesn't seem to be evolving all that much as a filmmaker. His films seem like Godard films. It's kind of like what Godard would have done if he had the tools he has today in the 1970s and the 1960s and maybe even into the 50s. So anyway, it's definitely a very beautiful film. But if I had to tell you exactly what it was all about, I'd have a hard time exactly telling you. But as a viewer of cinema, I'm not always completely immersed in the specifics of what is being said, but I more enjoy the kind of like atmosphere of a film and the nuance of it, and so for me, I just kind of like floating in the choices that he makes visually and in terms of audio. So anyway, it's a film worth checking out, especially if you're into Godard, or if you're curious about Godard. But I know that a lot of people have a hard time with his cinema. I personally find it really refreshing, and I love the fact that he does things where I'll be like, oh, if I was editing this, I would cut it here, and then he won't, and I'll be like, he didn't cut it there, but that's so smart that he didn't do that. You know, he always avoids cliche, and he always breaks with comfort. He's always when you're starting to feel like you're starting to like a piece of music or something, he cuts it or he interrupts it. He's always interrupting you as a viewer. He doesn't allow you to just get lulled into comfort. He's constantly doing the opposite. And I think that's Eisenstein is one of the films he refers to as some of the Battleship Potemkin in the film. And okay, Gabe, I'm done. You're rolling your eyes.
I'm not. No, I'm not.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Review your film, Gabe.
No, I actually want you to continue with that.
No.
You just got 5 movies to review here. 5 minutes. So anyway.
Just review one of them. You don't have to review 5 movies in 5 minutes. And we actually have till 1:18.
That's true. Okay, so The Expendables 2, which I saw last week, 2 weeks ago, and then we didn't have time to review it that week, and then we didn't have time last week. So let me find the review here. Brash, wild, abrasive, completely unapologetic, bloody, energetic, fun, campy, tongue-in-cheek, just hilariously out of control. There's just a wild body count, and there's some beautiful riffing on the emotionless life of these killing machines, like the need for love and compassion, but also the need to just keep killing. It's a wild, out of control ride. Action fans, this is a must. Even non-action film fans, this is a must. This is just, I don't know, this was the most fun I had at the movies maybe all year. This is not art. I'm just going to stress that. This film is not art. Some of the lines and some of the dialogue is just painfully bad. Some of the mechanisms and the filmmaking is just really lacking, but who cares? Quick, fast, short to the point, direct. Literally 45 minutes shorter than the first one. Awesome, badass. Love it. What else do I got here? We got The Deep Blue Sea, which I saw last week, and I saw about a week and a half ago. That's a recent release that just came out on DVD, which has Rachel Weisz. It's directed by Terrence Davies, who's a really strange British filmmaker. He's somewhere in between Merchant Ivory and I'm trying to think of someone American to compare him to. A very just a very direct, unpretentious filmmaker. I would actually compare him to maybe like Clint Eastwood in his more like his modern era, like maybe in the Changeling era, and his World War II flicks, and $1 Million Baby. Terrence Davies just is unapologetic. He just makes very direct movies that are hard to digest. And this movie was one of them. It's kind of stiff and uncomfortable British values and mores in the 1940s, and a lot of class struggle, and a lot of very realistic and very beautiful and very matter-of-fact images put on film. Beautiful set design, beautiful costume, beautiful lighting, rich acting. There's a lot of soft and gentle and then brash and loud moments, especially with the passion. There's just these great moments of acting and intensity that are they're really hard to watch, but they're really beautiful. Great filmmaking. And let me see, J. Edgar, which is a Clint Eastwood film made in that style, in that vein, very direct, very bold, is a film that keeps getting better and better as it goes along. It starts off kind of weak, and it just is too full of itself being a biopic, and being a traditional biopic at that. And it's just caught up with this idea of J. Edgar as this really interesting figure who wasn't what he seemed, and it just plays on the fact that he was a closeted homosexual and that he never was allowed to have this life, and he was obsessed with the FBI and creating it, and sort of this misunderstood figure. And I just felt like a lot of other films took this theme and did it a lot better in a lot of different ways. However, in the last third, this movie really comes together and really has a lot of poetry to it, except for the fact that the poetry is outlined very directly, and they're like, look, poetic scene. But it's very good filmmaking, and Clint Eastwood has really hidden a stride late in his career, late in his life, and he's finding a voice that he didn't seem... I mean, he had in some ways earlier, but he's really nuancing it. He's really finding a symmetry to it and a style to it that is all his own, for better or for worse.
Oh, yeah. Let's go to...
let's move on to Clint Eastwood, actually.
Clint Eastwood had his little moment in the RNC, the Republican National Convention here. This is pretty much not really referring to any movie thing, but here he is at the Republican National Convention. I'm just going to play a clip from this.
Well, I've got Mr. Obama sitting here, and I just was going to ask him a couple questions, but I remember 3.5 years ago when Mr. Obama won the election, and though I wasn't a big supporter, I was watching that night when he was having that thing, and they were talking about hope and change, and they were talking about yes, we can, and it was dark, and it was outdoors, and it was nice, and people were lighting candles, and they were saying, and I just thought, this is great. I mean, everybody's crying. Oprah was crying, and I was even crying. And then finally, I haven't cried that hard since I found out that there's 23 million unemployed people in this country.
Well, I thought that was a pretty, actually kind of poignant in a way. I mean, he makes some good points. It's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. He's a great public speaker.
But I have to say, he's a good public speaker. Actually, if you listen to the whole thing, though, it's really rambling, and people are saying, like, heads are going to roll for this, because I just played pretty much the best part of it. Mm-hmm. He rambles on. I mean, if you think I ramble, it was like me being on stage. It's just taking him forever to get to his points. And he is, here's the thing. This keeps happening to me, these fallen idols for me. It's like, I actually thought Charlton Heston was someone who I could relate to when I was like 12 years old. And then when I found out that he's this NRA gun nut, complete borderline fascist, I was just like, oh my God, I thought he seemed like such a soulful individual, and that's what actors are. They're good at conveying that. Then, of course, I guess I think I never really, actually, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I never really I always saw him for what he was. And actually, he's kind of gone up in my esteem, especially if you ever see Pumping Iron. Have you ever seen Pumping Iron?
I own it.
Oh, that's an incredible documentary.
It's amazing. Hey, Big Louie, yeah, I just psych you out.
Yeah, it really is. It's really interesting. I think about that. I think about Pumping Iron whenever I'm pumping iron. And then Mel Gibson. I thought Mel Gibson was in the 80s. I thought Mel Gibson was someone who I could kind of relate to. And now, after that, I was like, well, of all these people, at least Clint Eastwood is kind of like a soulful individual who understands the plight of the poor and gets it, you know, and especially in Gran Torino, you know, you just get this impression that he's really, you know, like on the side of the downtrodden masses and against like stupid racism and all that. And here he is standing up and making this plug for Mitt Romney and bashing Obama. And don't get me wrong, I'm ready to bash Obama, Mitt Romney, you know, but if you're going to bash Obama, you better, how can you, it's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm not seeing something that he's seeing, but, and I agree with the sentiment, you know, the sadness of the fact that millions of people are losing their jobs. But are you kidding me? You're going to put that on Obama? I don't care who's president. So anyway, I'm puzzled by Clint Eastwood, but I guess other people knew that he was kind of right wing, and all these tough guys they end up all being a bunch of right wing politicians. Except for Jesse Ventura. I kind of like Jesse Ventura. He's kind of gone up.
He's pretty awesome. Yeah, actually, his politics
are
actually pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I was shocked that. Well, people were so shocked that he actually had a brain and he had intelligence, and that he had a way of speaking and spreading this intelligence, much less actually being a good governor. I mean, it was just like, I remember,
right?
Because my sister lived in Minnesota.
He comes from Worldwide Wrestling, or whatever they call it now, WWE.
Yeah.
What were you saying about your sister?
She lived in Minnesota at the time.
Yeah.
And she's as far left as they come.
Yeah.
And she was like she was just, you know, this was in the age before Facebook, but she was spreading as much, but she was emailing everyone in her family about and she's like, literally, you just read the information before you make fun of me for, you know, and one, it's really funny because when I was a kid, I used to, the one wrestling quote from Jesse Ventura that I used to quote was, there was a video of him between the matches when they have like WrestleMania. There's this great quote from, I can't remember what year it was from, but he goes, "I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna kill him." And I used to walk around the house saying that because I had it taped on VHS, and I used to stomp around, because I loved Predator as a kid too, and I used to see him in that movie, and I go, "I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna kill." And so she goes, and Gabe, and she wrote in parentheses just Gabe, and don't stomp around saying I'm gonna kill him. He's actually a great politician. But yeah, it's really weird how these, you know, these people come into politics based on the fact that they're celebrities, they're movie actors, but they actually have ideas, and they're actually they actually turn out to be half decent people and half decent politicians. Whether or not I agree with them or not, in some
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan is one of the two people whose death I did not feel.
Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
Mel Gibson.
Okay.
Actually, Ronald Reagan's better than Mel Gibson.
I have to agree with that.
Charlton Heston and Mel Gibson are kind of like nut jobs. Yeah, I mean,
and Clint Eastwood was the mayor of.
There's a fine line between an actor and a politician, and it's all about name recognition. You know, that's a huge.
And you're acting anyway. It's all about presentation and acting. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Politicians are actors. You know, they're putting on a face. So, yeah. Anyway, what were the other things we were going to cover in this show?
Well, we were going to talk about the influences as filmmakers.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So why don't we start with you, Gabe?
Well, what we're going to discuss is movies that either influenced us visually in our style, or just really said like, I can do that, or I should make a movie, or like we're just like, well, that's really brilliant and bold, and that's something that I've never seen before, and maybe influenced us in our own way of shooting or in our own way of looking at narrative. For me, definitely, when I was in middle school, it was 2001. bar none. It was 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick. And those tracking shots, those durational shots, the use of special effects to enhance narrative, the use of special effects to enhance character development, which also enhance the narrative, to do these things hand in hand, and to do things on such a large scale and to use money and special effects correctly to just sort of create this bizarre Byzantine universe of mystery and wonder and awe. I mean, as a 13-year-old kid who is basically, had never seen something like that, especially, an older film that was, I had no idea that this film the film covered any of the ground that it did. It was just the most mysterious thing I'd ever watched. But the filmmaking, the mise-en-scène, the shots in it, and the vastness of scope of how far some of those shots stretched really definitely influenced my love of wide shots forever. I mean, in terms of...
He used very good... Well, he like Hitchcock, but I think more so, he was a filmmaker who really understand the mechanics of filmmaking.
Absolutely. And changed them.
Right. He influenced he actually changed them. Well, I would, it's hard for me to, because when I think about it, I'm like, well, what age are we talking about? Because I was influenced by cinema, I was influenced by child films, because I was a child. So there's all the child films, but I don't know if I really want to go into that, because in a way at that point in life, you don't even know what you're doing. You're going to a movie that your parents bring you to. So you're not even making real choices at that point.
That's really true.
I do remember that, I could go into like my first movie experiences, but I almost feel like that's a different subject. So I'm going to go jump forward into my older years when I first started going to art school and film school. And my first big influence, I think, would be Godard.
Yeah.
I think Godard is someone who, I would read books. I would spend time in the library looking at all the film books, and Godard was the one who I just was sort of puzzled by and marveled at, and I just, kept kind of like trying to figure out what he was about. So definitely Godard was a huge influence on me. Then I would say George Kuchar had a huge amount of influence on me as a filmmaker. George Kuchar, for people who don't know, is one of John Waters' early influences, or certainly someone who John Waters talked a lot about as a filmmaker. He was gay, and his films are very campy. He sort of almost defines campy cinema, where lots of costumes, lots of trying to make things glamorous with like just hodgepodge, like grabbing things out of the closet and out of the, no pun intended, or like out of resale shops, and kind of getting all done up and putting on a theatrical type of film that's very campy.
He was the original director of Gone with the Wind, and he's responsible for about 90% of the look and the interiors and the way that it was finally shot. But Clark Gable was uncomfortable working with the homosexual and had him fired. And
wait, whoa.
George Kuchar?
Nope.
Oh, I thought you meant George Cukor, and I'm like, wow,
George Cukor.
Okay, I was like, wow.
And they were often.
And he was a gay. Okay,
they were often confused. Yeah, no. George Kuchar.
You were really
do you know George Kuchar?
I know who you're talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
George Kuchar. He's pretty underground, but at this point in time, people like. I mean, it's hard for me to believe, but they're national figures. He was actually honored at the last Academy Awards. His death, there was a mention of George Kuchar.
That's right.
And he was, he was my professor at UWM in the 80s. I mean, for one semester or one session. So I would say George Kuchar had a huge influence on me as a filmmaker. Then I would say Warhol had a lot of influence on my thinking as a filmmaker, because I also came from art. I kind of started in painting, and I wanted to move into filmmaking because...
Any ones in particular? Any Warhol film or any films in particular?
I look at a lot of filmmakers as kind of like their body of work is one thing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
Warhol did have different stages, like... He started getting into television stuff, and it was a little different. But, I mean, you can really kind of credit Warhol with the long duration films.
Durational filmmaking.
And that makes perfect sense in that if you think in terms of his work, he was extremely influenced by Hollywood and by pop culture, cinema, things like that. You know, his studio was all painted silver, which was kind of a reference to the silver screen. But then you take someone who's making paintings and they make a film. Well, when you make a film, it's like a painting. You just have it, you know, paintings don't have duration. They just are there. So if you wanted to make a film that's like a painting, you would make a 24-hour film. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you go to a gallery and you look at the film and it goes on for 24 hours.
Well, that's what he was, and that's what was exactly what he said about Empire, that Empire is the surreal moving painting. I mean, it's literally one shot of the Empire State Building. But if you really focus, even just sections of that movie, which I've never been able to watch it for more than 2 hours. Yeah. But there are sequences where he slows it down, and you can kind of tell because there's things within the frame that are moving. There's birds that fly by. There's absolutely. There's little things that are moving with it.
Things. Well, there's also the grain and the
grain.
You know, the film is moving through the gate and the light is changing, and every frame is a little bit different from the next.
Yeah, he loops certain frames. He loops certain reels. I mean, it's just absolutely surreal how he played with time, but it's still the same image. I mean, he just
and of course, Empire is a film that we know about, but I've never seen Empire. I've never watched it because it is so much. He's a conceptual artist, conceptual filmmaker, and you know you'd have to have almost gone to whatever his opening of Empire to see
the whole thing in its proper context.
That is something that you don't pull out of the. There's probably only like maybe 3 prints of it out there. I don't even know. I mean, that's a lot of film. So it's 24. It's a 24-hour long film of the Empire State Building. But, you know, it's conceptual. You can think about it. You can look at pictures of it, and you can kind of get an idea.
It's the idea of it that's important. You're absolutely correct.
Right. I mean, it's conceptual art. You know, it's so much about an idea rather than the object that's in front of you. The object is almost incidental.
Incidental, yeah.
Because that's the kind of world we live in. You know, a can of Coca-Cola is a can of Coca-Cola. We know what that is in our minds. It's not that one specific can of Coca-Cola that I had last week.
Yeah.
You know?
It is subjective rather than needing to objectively actually view the art. Once the idea, and that's what I think is so important about his work, is that once the idea is sown and planted, I mean, it's so simple and it's so precise that it's profound. I mean, I think that's what I was talking about that at work today with a friend of mine when he was like, and he was talking about, he goes, the fucking soup can. He goes, really? He goes, I get it, but it's so inane. And I'm like, that's the whole point. And he goes, and it was like for the first time it really finally made sense to him. Like it pissed him off so much previously. And I was just like, well, yeah, it's supposed to piss you off. It's supposed to create all these emotions, and look what it's doing 60 years later. I mean, look at all the emotions. We're talking about it, are we not? And I said,
I'd beg to differ on that. I mean, I think there's a certain aspect of that maybe, but it sounds to me like what you're saying is it's meant to get a rise out of people, and I don't think that that's where he was at. I think that what he was trying to do was capture. Well, we're kind of going off on a tangent here, but I mean, I don't think that.
I wouldn't say
that
a rise.
Sounds malicious. It sounds as if this artist is just trying to piss you off.
That's not what I mean.
Or trying to like make you. He doesn't care if you're going to be pissed off. That's true.
That's what I mean. He
doesn't care, but I don't think that's.
He wants an experience.
That's not what he's. You know, I think that what he's after, if no one was pissed off and everyone loved it right away, or if no one was pissed off and they appreciated it for what it was, what his vision was, he would be happy. You know what I'm saying?
I guess what I meant.
And actually, he meaning everyone. I mean, the whole sort of like that worldview would be the people who subscribe to that worldview would be content if people were not just like pissed off, you know. Okay, so another director that I'm strongly influenced by would be Pasolini. And why I have a very strong feeling for historical recreation, and I feel like he really did something. He did it really in a way that works for me.
Sure.
And so that's what I really liked about about Pasolini. Any others, Gabe, that you have?
Absolutely. Woodstock, the film by Michael Wadley, is not only my favorite documentary of all time, but it's one of my it's my favorite piece of filmmaking in terms of just capturing and just going for it, just getting closer, getting more intense, more angles, more shots, and the editing. It's what really got me into editing, and it's what really showed me that multiple perspectives of the same event and at the same time, but shown in different ways and different perspectives, that everything is always changing. Even if you're looking at the same thing a million times, even if you're just looking at the same event the same way in the same shot, it's always changing. Your subjectivity of it is always changing. Your experience of it is always changing, and therefore the meaning of it is always changing. And here's a historical document. Here's something that's literally just capturing a concert, but there's something in the air in that night. There's something about these performances that are magic. I mean, it's just electric. It's profound. It's powerful. And the way and what he did, which was an accident, was that he processed some film and he had accidentally overlapped two different frames, and then he saw the image and goes, "Oh my God!" And he was like, "We have to re-edit the whole movie." And what had happened was he had taken two different shots of the same event that were time signatured at the same moment, like at a certain time, and he had somehow accidentally they'd gotten processed over each other, and it was like an accident, like, oh shit, and he looked at it, and it was an image of I believe it was of 10 years after, of them being shot directly from the front. And also there was an image of him being shot from the lower left, so the microphone was juxtaposed over his face, and both cameras are moving because the music's just loud as hell, and he's moving around within the frame. So there's two kinds of action. He's like, let's take this to the next level. So literally, the movie just has so much movement and action and fluency that it just showed me that even if you don't stop, even if you keep shooting, there's so much movement and action that is capable within a durational and a tracking shot, almost more so than editing and using all this style and having to like add all these effects. If you just let something happen, that to me, at least as a viewer and as a filmmaker, that is the most exciting and engaging thing that you can capture, either as fiction or as fact. That to just let things unfold and to see where that goes. And as a filmmaker, that was something that one of my best friends and my mentor always taught me: don't ever stop shooting unless you're out of film, or unless you're just absolutely done, unless everyone knows you're done. Keep shooting, even if it's a fictional film, and you keep rolling. If someone is just standing there, and he said that was half the brilliance about Apocalypse Now, which isn't one of my major influences, but he said that was a huge part of the making of that film, was that he just kept the cameras rolling. Even when people were sleeping, because he kept the set going all night. People would be sleeping, and he would just keep the scene going, and he would just film it like, well, maybe something will happen. Maybe the character will decide to do something different. People thought he was crazy. People thought he was crazy, but that's really brilliant to continue to live in that environment. That the film is now real. I just find that there's something really awesome with that. And I'd say more in line with your level of with like cinema, and more on like
sort of an arty level, arty level,
art cinema, or more profound cinema, as I would call it, because it definitely is. It's the new wave. It definitely is different.
Well, I would say if I had to define what it is that I look for in why I'm Day for Night is a beautiful film.
Day for Night for me in terms of the montage.
Except that I've always felt like Truffaut. I don't really put him in the kind of. I don't really think of him as that kind of. I think Truffaut was really just a filmmaker who wanted to make movies.
I have to agree with you on that one.
In a time period where, things were changing. It was the 60s, and he was friends with Godard, but his cinema really is really kind of like traditional. It really kind of is similar to what the French
and what the Americans
in general were doing. I would say other ones to throw out real quick would be Fassbinder had a huge influence on me, and Ozu.
Wow.
I love Ozu's work. Okay, so in our last 2 minutes, can you just quickly wrap? We have a clip of Battleship. You watched that on DVD.
I watched
yesterday.
Battleship, and
just came out on DVD.
I got to say that Battleship was. Oh, I completely forgot about Battleship. I was going to review that. Okay, here's the thing. It just came out. It's exciting. It's rousing. There's some great combat sequences in there. There's some great. The special effects are the most seamless and most touchable and most realistic things I've maybe ever seen in a mainstream Hollywood feature. but I just didn't care. It's literally one of the most boring, most like just there movies I've ever seen. And the thing is that it's competent. It's well directed. It's well shot. It's well edited. It's well mixed. And the acting isn't bad. That almost makes it worse because it's like it could have had this.
You were saying it's not so bad.
It's good. It's just kind of like it's just there. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just another movie that has stuff blowing up. And it's literally like the machines from Transformers, the suits from G.I. Joe.
He said one day we find them.
It's just like, and like us. The music and some of the like the
what else he said?
Some of the really cheesy aspects of Iron Man 2, like the things that were a step down in that sequel.
That day comes.
It's just and Rihanna as the most wooden. That's what I'm talking about. Sound effects like this. Lots of loud, pointless special sound effects just over and over again. But anyway, that it was entertaining. I got to say that I was entertained through a good portion of it, but I just, in terms of moral complexity, there is none there. It makes Transformers 2 look like a very deep film.
Okay, well, on that note, we're going to wrap it up. And thank you for...
Thank you. I love this piece of music.
This is from Film Socialism.
I just love that this is like the 6th time we played it too, but it's great. I should... We're going to play this next week as well. We'll see you later. My Dinner with Gabe.
Bye.
Sayonara.
Sayonara.